Wasn't working?
You're live.
Good evening, everyone. If I could have your attention, please. Thanks for coming this evening. I'd like to call the regular City Commission meeting of Tuesday, August 15th, 2023 to order and ask all of you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Jenks.
Present.
Commissioner Rozelle.
Present.
Commissioner Olsman.
Present.
Commissioner Elder is excused. Mayor Paul present. We have a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have no communications this evening. And I don't see any elected officials unless they're hiding behind the crowd. Okay. Which will move us right on to public participation. This is an opportunity for the public to address the City Commission on an item that is not on the agenda. If you have something you'd like to express to the Commission, please come forward to the podium. If you have a question as part of your comments, please encourage you to leave your name and a contact information on that sheet there so that either the city manager or the proper person can get back to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Due to the large number of people that are here this evening, and I'm assuming they're not here for the two items of business that we have, if everyone could keep their remarks to 2 to 3 minutes, that will give everyone an opportunity to speak. I'd appreciate that.
Okay. My name is Ron Stawas. I live at 26332 York Street, Huntington Woods. That's between Concord and Salem. What I'm here to share with you is a conversation I had with the city manager previously, discussing an issue to bring to all of your attention. It's the lack of containment in trash at the Payne Center building on Woodward Avenue. And if I may, I speed up the conversation.
Thank you.
I brought something that you could have.
Thank you.
You got most of that when we discussed.
I think I do.
The issue. But I did add a few more things in regards to some of the code issues. As I said, I spoke on the 4th of August with the city manager, and I informed Mr. Wilson that this is not a new issue, and that I had previous conversations years ago with the city manager, Amy Sullivan. And to date, I'll note that really nothing has been done to take care of the issue. And what the issue is, I outlined it on the first page, is that ever since that pain clinic came into being over there, it's very problematic that they are not able to contain their trash and debris from their facilities. In the pictures that I have on the second page, it shows how their containers are kept, and there's holes in them. And at first, it was a problem when I brought it up to Amy years ago, that, you know, it was a nuisance having squirrels and things like that, bringing and dropping things in our backyard, have to clean it up. But now it's become a real problem. We have a rat infestation. And if you see on the diagram I gave, it's at the property, it's my next door neighbor, 2632 York property. That's where they're kind of living, and there's a good number of them. And the problem that we have now is because the conversations that have occurred with that pain clinic obviously have not worked. Nothing has been done. It's been a few years. It was a nuisance kind of with the squirrels. Now we have lost the use of our backyards. I can't sit back there. I can't entertain. We got rats running back and forth
On your property?
on my property and on my neighbor's property, and the property's down the road. On the last page, you'll see there are some of the neighbors who signed on saying that, you know, they're concerned also about the issues that they're running through their properties also. I think I looked at some of the code ordinances, and it talks about the seriousness of rats. Rodent control is one of them, and it says that it's a health concern, it's a serious nuisance. They say the shelter and source for them is in garbage storage areas. It says the source of food is primarily garbage for rats. It says plastic bags are not rat-proof and shouldn't be used for overnight storage. It says rats will leave when their food source is eliminated. It's been years, their food source has not been eliminated. The neighboring office buildings there, I have photos of them on the third page. One of them has their containers, and the containers are by their building. The other one doesn't put his trash out until trash day. He has no containers outside. Something has to be done about this. In my conversation that I had with Mr. Wilson, he said, you know, he will take this under consideration, he will talk to code enforcement, and he'll get back with me. That was on the 4th. Well, on the 11th, I contacted Mr. Wilson again, said, I haven't heard anything. He responded back to me saying that multiple tickets were issued by code enforcement, and that he would be talking to Mr. Berry and would get back to me this last Monday. I have heard nothing. What's going to be done to solve this problem? I think enough time has passed, and it has become very obvious that just conversations between the city and the pain center are not working, is not solving the problem. I think getting the trash containers moved from the wall where they are located, as you can see in the pictures, right against our backyards to a location at their building at least would make them aware of the situation, maybe keep a better eye on it as a starting point. But as you can see in the picture, the containers have holes in them.
So these are right up against the brick wall behind your yard?
Correct. Well, my neighbor's yard. And the infestation is in the neighbor's backyard. Rats use the wall as a highway, and they have a smorgasbord of product that they are getting themselves into. So I think first thing would be getting them away from the wall. Again, we never had this problem with previous tenants that were in that building. The other thing is that it says you have to eliminate the rats. Mr. Wilson mentioned that the city has a contract or is in touch with rodent control, and he suggested that they could put up traps. That's great. Nothing has been
As long
done.
as there's a food source, we've been through, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I mean just to inform you that we've been through this. I don't know how many years ago we brought in an expert on it, and it's very simple. Rats live
Right.
normally within, I forgot the exact number, but it's 50 feet or 50 yards, whatever, of a food source. They only go where there's a food source. They don't,
understand.
and when they, you know, they're very sophisticated in
Right.
terms of how they create whole underground
Exactly.
living accommodations for themselves, and they do go where there's a food source. So,
If you eliminate that,
oh, I'm not,
they'll leave.
you're talking to somebody, you have no disagreement from me. I mean, I've been on the city commission for 14 years, and I assure you, this kind of topic is something that I've, you know, advocated repeatedly, that this is very harmful to the community, and there's absolutely no reason for them to store
doing it
containers
for
up
years.
against your fence.
They've been doing it for
Well,
years.
okay, but I'm saying that Hank Berry is probably You know,
And-
one of the most aggressive people you'll see when it comes to this, but,
I would disagree.
okay.
Because it's
well,
been 2 years and nothing has been done about the source, and now we have rats.
Okay.
And I was very hesitant, and we did put out some traps, but we listened to things that Ferndale had done, where you put them under milk containers, because I don't want to trap a different kind of animal and not kill it and just injure
Neighborhood
it.
cat. and things.
Well, and or a possum or whatever, and injure it and not kill it and cause, you know, a problem there. But according to information in our own ordinances, it says 2 things have to be done. You have to eliminate the food source, and you have to eliminate the rats, so you need to do 2 things. And then on top of that, in our environmental section, chapter 14, this is on the last page, or second to last, it says, "No person shall commit or create or maintain a nuisance." They have been doing it, and nothing has been done. I think I've
Thank
been
you.
patient enough.
Yep, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention, and I guarantee that we will follow up with this
Be
as a
assured-
commission.
Be assured
and
of that.
Well, I want
We'll
more than
also-
a follow-up, I want
Bet on it.
action.
We'll keep in contact with you to let you know what we're doing.
But this is, I believe this is the same business on Woodward that I believe one of your neighbors
Some
complained about.
light
the
issue.
The light issues and things like
And the
that.
response I got back, well, in regards, and I think people were getting things mixed up, they said, oh, Mr. Berry had given some tickets to them, and that they're not sure about the court date. Well, on this issue, there's no court date that I'm aware of.
Okay, well, Hank's not here tonight, and if he was, he could speak for himself, but I can assure you that I know he takes these matters very seriously, and you can be sure that we do as well.
Not you guys, but not serious enough in my book, because it's been a long time.
I
And you
understand.
left your contact information
Yes,
for us
and,
there.
and Mr. Wilson has it also.
All right.
Thank
Okay,
you for
thank
coming
you.
in.
Anyone else for public participation?
Never seen you before.
It's nice being on this side.
How do you like that?
Say, ladies and gentlemen, Michelle's not here. So I'm Gilda Jacobs. I'm I'm sorry, a little bit of a visual problem on my left side. I missed you. My name is Gilda Jacobs. I am a 47-year resident of Huntington Woods. I know I don't even look like I'm 47. So I'm here tonight to support the work of the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee for its DEI work and activities to support inclusion in our city, in our neighborhoods, and our staff, and how we work with residents. Our city is not just a city of 6,000 residents. We're part of a more global community, a county, a state, and a nation. And how we handle ourselves as a city is a statement of our beliefs and our values that we will hand down to our children and our grandchildren. When my husband John and I moved into Huntington Woods 47 years ago, we moved to a city of diverse political views, diverse socioeconomic groups, and quite honestly, a city that I hoped would become more racially and ethnically diverse as we raised our 2 children. Now, fast forward, 2 of my 3 grandchildren live just 6 minutes away from me, and I hope that they will benefit from the hard work of the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee. You know, society has changed. Things are different than they were when I first moved here. And most importantly, I want my city to be a welcoming place for all people, no matter the color of their skin, the country of their origin, the entries in their checkbook, their sexual orientations. But as a city, we must be respectful and understand where others are coming from. It pains me to hear that some families have moved out or are considering moving out of my beloved city because they don't feel welcome. We must do all we can to reverse this and create an environment where all people feel heard, included, and respected, and are part and included in the fabric of this amazing community. Besides my work as an elected official over many, many years, I'm also the former CEO of a nonprofit that has spent years and continues to spend time and $10,000s of dollars in its DEI work. This work is really, really hard. It costs a lot of money. I always say democracy is expensive. And introspection is really, really hard, and change is hard. But it is really crucial to a healthy city. Thank you so much for listening to me tonight.
Thank you.
Sue Carden, 13307 Vernon, Huntington Woods. I've been a resident since 1984. And I'm here also to support our Anti-Racism Advisory Committee. I'm going to give a brief history of systemic racism just in my lifetime. I'll be quick. I'm going to start out with Brown versus Board of Education. That was in Kansas in 1952. Black kids couldn't go to schools where white kids go to school until the Supreme Court said that they could. And even then, it took federal troops to ensure that black students had access to the same schools as white students. Jumping ahead to 1967, Loving versus Virginia, black people could not marry white people until the Supreme Court said that they could. 1974, when Hank Aaron was about to break Babe Ruth's home run record, he needed FBI protection because of the hundreds of death threats that he received because a black man was about to break the home run record of a white man. In Detroit, we got here in the 70s, and in 1982, Vincent Chin, Chinese, was brutally assaulted. He was murdered by two people wielding a baseball bat. They thought he was Japanese, he was Chinese. It probably didn't matter too much to them. Possibly the most egregious part of it was the fact that the two perpetrators did not have any time in prison whatsoever. They received fines and probation. They never spent a day in jail. Jumping to our neighborhood in Huntington Woods in the mid-90s, maybe 1995, many of us wanted an outdoor basketball court. That became a issue of racial contention. The code word used was that we did not want a certain element to come into our city, and I think everybody probably understood what an element was, or was meant to be. And then jumping right to the present, in 2023, Florida has banned hundreds of books. One of them happened to be about Hank Aaron. Another one, Martin Luther King's Letter from a Birmingham Jail. Another one, Diary of Anne Frank. And another one is the biography of Sonia Sotomayor. So a Supreme Court justice is having her biography reviewed by the state of Florida because it probably talks about relations that she had as a brown person with white people. So because of that, because of our structural racism in our society, we need an anti-racist committee. It continues to be a ubiquitous problem in the United States. And I'm proud and happy to be a member of a city that recognizes that. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Judy Goldsmith. I live at 8110 Concord, and I was going to jump up before this conversation, but I'll just tell you why I'm here. I've been a Huntington Woods resident for 33 years, and when I go back to when we first moved here, city services seem to be a lot more attentive than they are today. And specifically, I'd like to talk about snow removal. I know nobody's thinking about it yet. However, we didn't have a lot of snow this winter, but when it snowed on a Saturday, they did not plow until Monday. And when I called DPW, I was told, oh, there's not enough people working, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know what the budget is in the city. I don't know anything about the money and the finances of Huntington Woods. I do know that there are houses that are selling for $1 gazillion more than they did when I moved in. I'm assuming those taxes are higher. I don't understand.
Unfortunately, no.
The streets? You're talking about the
Streets or sidewalks?
And all the sidewalks used to be brushed. Every single time it snowed, every single sidewalk in the city was brushed. And it's just not happening. So just wanted to put a little bug in your ear for when it starts to snow, which hopefully it won't that much. But I think we need to have better services in terms of weekend snow removal. And brushing sidewalks no matter when it snowed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allison Lisi, and I live on LaSalle. I grew up in Huntington Woods, and I moved back here with my husband about 4 years ago. And we chose to move back to my hometown when we started having kids because I loved Huntington Woods growing up, and we wanted to be close to family. My parents still live here in Huntington Woods as well. And after we moved here, I was really proud and grateful when my husband volunteered to be on the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee, the newly created committee. He is a man of color, and our children are people of color, and he wanted to make sure that this city that I love and where we have chosen to raise our children is a safe, welcoming, and inclusive place for our children, for other people of color, and for everyone, really. As I was thinking about what I wanted to say tonight, I decided I want to share an anecdote that I think illustrates my current feelings. I love to look at houses, especially in Huntington Woods. When they come on the market, I fantasize about moving to that nice house. Oh, I could have a mudroom. I could have a 4th bedroom. And recently a really nice house came on the market, and my mom texted and said, "Are you gonna go see this? It looks perfect for your family." And I looked at it, and I didn't feel any of the normal excitement that I feel or the rush that I would get imagining my family moving into that house. And it took me a minute to realize I just couldn't imagine my family moving to another house in Huntington Woods at all. I have been so disheartened and sad and angry to hear about the recent events and the opposition that the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee has faced, particularly the committee members of color, to hear the anger and the ignorance of some of my neighbors, and to hear how quick they are to dismiss and discount other people's lived experiences because they don't share them and because they can't or aren't willing to try to understand them. It makes me feel honestly ashamed and disappointed and furious. And more than anything, it has made me question whether this city is still a place that I want to live, still the place where I want to raise my children. I really hope that this city is not swayed or scared by what I hope and believe are a vocal, intolerant, or ignorant few. I do not think that they represent the majority in our city, at least I really hope not, and they certainly do not speak for me. I'm heartened to hear the supporters that are here tonight speaking out, and I also want to say that I strongly support the city's decision to create this Anti-Racism Advisory Committee and to commission a DEI report. These are important steps in the right direction, and I strongly urge the city to continue with these efforts to make our city a better and more inclusive place for all. Thank you. Good evening. I'm going to piggyback on Allison because I'm her mother. My name's Lori Lisi, and I live at 8775 Lincoln Drive, and I have lived in Huntington Woods for over 30 years. I am speaking tonight on behalf of myself and my husband, Michael, who could not be here. I speak not only in favor of the anti-racism efforts of the city and the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee, or ARAC as they call themselves, but specifically in support of the two people of color on ARAC, Daniel Denna, Allison's husband, and Katie Beaulieu. These two volunteers were the only committee members singled out for personal attack by those opposing the city's anti-racism efforts. I cannot think of anything that anyone could have said or done that more clearly indicates the need for the city's anti-racism efforts. I want Katie and Daniel to know that I respect the time and energy that they have invested to make this a better place for their families and for mine. It must be exhausting to explain systemic racism repeatedly to those who refuse to acknowledge that it exists and that no community or person is immune to its deep roots. The harm caused by this vocal minority is also personal to me. Daniel Denna is my fabulous son-in-law. He and my daughter Allison have 2 children that I get to see every week because despite Daniel's trepidation about living in a community with few people of color, they moved to Huntington Woods to be close to us. It was me that suggested that Daniel volunteer to become a member of ARAC. At the time, I warned that being on this committee might reveal some ugly side of Huntington Woods. I had no idea how right I would be. I hope that the commissioners reflect on how this outspoken minority demonstrates the absolute imperative
of continuing the anti-racism work? Will my children and grandchildren continue to live here? I hope so, but if we alienate our current residents of color, how can we expect others to move into the neighborhood? What is the message this minority group sends to our neighbors here in Huntington Woods and in the surrounding communities when they make it their mission to speak out against diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts and assert that there is no need to work to make my family feel welcome? Thank you.
My name is Rich Feldman. I live at 10474 LaSalle Boulevard. Been there since 1990. And I've shared this with a few folks in the past. When I moved in 1990, folks said it was integrated. I said, what did you mean? They said it was Jewish and non-Jewish. Sunday, for the first time, I went to the swimming pool in a long time. If I took a picture of that swimming pool and compared it to 1955 in the suburbs of Detroit or Birmingham, Alabama, there's no difference. It's embarrassing. And I think not only do I want to support the Anti-Racism Committee and its work and its step-by-step and the amazing Juneteenth Day, that celebration that was here with music and a wonderful speaker, but I want to also say that it's about truth-telling. And the truth is we have to go so deep to understand what it means for us to be comfortable in our town when this place was built on isolating and marginalizing Royal Oak Charter Township, as were all 9 other suburban, South Oakland suburban centers. So we have a lot of digging to do, a lot of understanding, not just the global context, and not only making it comfortable, but we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, how do we become the human beings we want to become unless we have a society and a community that not only welcomes everybody, but learns from the history and says enough is enough. We don't want to be part of that history anymore. We want to go in a new direction. Thank you.
I'm Jeff Leiter. I live on Dundee. I've lived here for 30 years. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I've had the privilege and opportunity to attend some of the anti-racism meetings, and I'll preface my statement by agreeing with many of my neighbors that racism is unacceptable, harassment is unacceptable, it should not be included, and I think the concept of an anti-racism committee has great validity. The concerns I've had, the concerns I have about having concerns and hearing tonight is that if I have any concerns or questions, I'm deemed as closed-minded, bigoted, and unaccepting. I simply want to make sure that as the Anti-Racism Committee moves forward, garners information, and gives recommendations which could eventually become policy for the city in advising the commission, that we ensure that all of their findings and recommendations are valid. And that's really one of the only and true concerns I have regarding it, because that can turn into policy. So the fact that I question validity or want some questions answered does not make me a phobe or racist. I'm just a concerned citizen, so I want to clarify that. I also had said, and I'm glad that Katie and some of the other members are here when we spoke last time, so if I mischaracterize something, I can be told, but I'd said to you last time that was concerning to me with acceptance, and as you know from my prior experience, I've had hate letters put in my mailbox and eggs thrown at my house because I've not been accepted here for other reasons. And when Katie had said to me, repeating again, looked me in the eye and said, skin color is the most important thing about a person, which I found to be offensive and racist in and of itself. And we've talked since, and I think in the end, and if I'm wrong, Katie, let me know. Katie has great ethnic pride, and she values her ethnicity and skin color and wants to be seen that way. So I'm not quite as offended as I was by that statement. And I believe that if we're going to have diversity, which is welcome, and acceptance, it's organic. I don't think it can be socially engineered. So that's some of the questions I have about some of the recommendations, potential policy. And it is somewhat of an analogy, and Jules, you might appreciate it, at Detroit Golf Club, which I think is arguably, can't say factually, but one of the most diverse clubs in the country. And how people move to Huntington Woods, they have at least some commonalities. They want to live in the geographic area, they appreciate our family values, and are willing, for lack of a better term, to overpay for a house, get an old house, detached garage, single-lane driveway. As all our friends tell us, you can get so much more house elsewhere. Those are things we all have in common. At Detroit Golf Club, probably the members, 3 things in common: probably live in the 20-mile radius, they love golf, and they could afford to be there. And we have, again, great diversity off the top of my head, 30% African American, 10 to 15% Jewish, many other ethnicities, Chaldean, everything. One thing we don't have a lot of, and I've thought about this off the top of my head, we don't coincidentally have a lot of Hispanic members. It's just organic, it just didn't happen. But I don't think a great zeal that we need to go out and recruit Hispanic members. It's just, if a Hispanic member wants to come and has interest, they will come and be welcome. Just as every citizen who comes here and moves here should be welcome. I think, Katie, when you moved in, you were welcome. Daniel, welcome. All your children are welcome. And if they are not welcome, that is completely unacceptable. Again, when I question things, and I may get seen as the enemy here tonight, as the social blast brought a lot of people, I just want to make sure that the recommendations are confirmed, are valid, and accurate before we turn them into policy. Thank you.
My name is Gladys Boyson Kwachi. I live on 2662 Humber Street. I didn't come with a speech. I don't have anything prepared. I just felt like, just saying something. I've lived in Huntington Woods for 25 years, and I guess I'm so busy that maybe, everything that is being said here is something that I haven't noticed. I have been very welcomed in Huntington Woods all these years. My friends are in different areas of the city. We go on vacation trips to Mackinac Island, and my son basically went to school through the Berkeley School District. And, I'm sure if there is racism in the U.S. and in other parts of the world. I've traveled to several places in the world, and there is racism everywhere. People are very nice, some people are not. You just have to basically determine who, how people are based on their character and all. So that's all that I wanted to say today, that I felt very welcomed in Huntington Woods. So I guess maybe I've just been lucky.
Hi, I'm Haley Thompson, 10804 Vernon Avenue. I have many things I could say, but my child, Zain Ahmed, would like to speak, has been listening and wants to speak.
I went to Burton Elementary School, and I just want to say that I haven't felt entirely welcome there. I was told multiple hateful things based on my race, including that my skin looked like poop by another student. I was told multiple other hateful things. Our curriculum was based on just normalizing different racial beliefs, or racist beliefs, I should say, including we had one assignment that we had to advertise essentially stolen land and like slaves. And I was one of the only 2 black students in my entire grade, the other student being my twin sibling. And neither of us are fully black, which I feel like you should just take a second to let that sink in. There were 2 black students in our entire grade, and we were both half black. There were about 3 other students of color in my grade, being brown people, and that's just not a very welcoming environment for children of color.
And I will just say, as the adult member of the household, I've spoken to this commission before, that Huntington Woods definitely has a ways to go in terms of being a welcoming community. And I think that the work of the Anti-Racism Committee is an opportunity to really explore some of the historical reasons why we don't have many people of color, particularly African Americans and Latinx people in this community. It is structural. It is not just about being nice to people, being polite to people. It's about policies and laws and opportunities that are provided to some versus others that contribute to the makeup or the unbalanced makeup of this community. So, yeah, thank you.
Hi, everybody. I am Joanne Leiter, and I have been a resident of Huntington Woods for 32 years. First and foremost, I want to remind everyone that asking questions is not hateful or racist. It represents the privilege, the right, and the duty we have as American citizens. I am not a racist or a hater or a phobe because I want answers to reasonable questions. And I want to remind everybody here right now that the only person in this whole situation who has faced hostility has been me. The first time I went,
Please,
I was talking about.
Joanne,
Ms. Leiter,
please,
you have to address us.
just address the commission.
I was speaking about when we have engaged with the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee. I was not talking about the world as a whole. I was being very specific. When I made my first question of the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee, I was laughed at, sneered at, snickered at, eyes were rolled at me, and heads were shaken at me in disgust, all because I asked questions, and I will not be intimidated. I won't. This is not a personal crusade against the anti-racism advisors. They have appointed themselves advisors on anti-racism to our city commissioners, and even though they are volunteers, and that is honorable, hold on a second. Obviously, I'm a little nervous, so give me a second here. And even though that is honorable, they are required to display a reasonable amount of expertise and be able to prove their advising represents a sound policy and programming. They don't need a doctorate, but they do need to be able to clearly and concisely articulate why they exist as a committee and provide proof that what they are doing is effective and does more good than harm. They have a lot of plans, and the burden is on them to prove these plans will work. I have an update from last month. In review, Jeff and I wandered into the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee meeting in June, and we were the only 2 residents there, which represents a significant lack of community interest and input. There were 3 committee members there, and this is where they were very hostile to me when I tried to ask basic questions about their purpose and necessity. They refused to answer a single question of ours, and instead they referred us 5 times to their DEI report, which they assured us contained all the answers to our questions. So I went home and I read the report, and it took me hours to get through. I spent many more hours researching standards for surveys, racist acts in Huntington Woods, and informally interviewing people. I did my homework. Jeff and I returned to the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee in August to ask basic questions like, how do you define diversity, and where is your data security information? The committee answered 0 of our questions, 0. They immediately distanced themselves from the report that they told me 5 times was the report that would answer all my questions, and this I quote of them: "That's not our report. We didn't order it. We didn't prepare it. We don't use it. We only use parts of it." And when I continued to press them, the leader, who is Katie, said, and I quote her, "I believe the report is valid, so it's valid, and we are going to keep using it." Incidentally, the committee had grown from 3 to 7, and there were 2 additional residents there. I sent Chris, the city manager, a long list of questions regarding the validity of this DEI report. I will share one of them with you. On page 21, the survey asked this question: I think the City of Huntington Woods policies and practices demonstrate a negative bias towards race and ethnicity. I'm going to repeat that. I think the City of Huntington Woods policies and practices demonstrate a negative bias towards race and ethnicity. 82% of the 553 surveyed respondents disagreed with this leading statement. That's a pretty incredible declaration of support for a city that is not racist. In addition to this question, the survey, along with that question, listed 9 key comments. Most of these complained that the bias in Huntington Woods is actually against conservatives, Republicans, and critical thinkers. This, like all the other comments that don't fit into the narrative, go ignored. If you're wondering why I don't have more support here, I can provide the answers. Number one, people are terrified of being called racist by this committee. Number two, asking questions and going through this 44-page report is so time-consuming, hardly anyone other than me is willing to do it. Number three, most residents have no idea this is going on. Email blasts are ignored, as are signs. Number four, of the people who do know about this, they are not taking this seriously and have no idea what the committee is planning. Number five, DEI programs are dying in this country, and they see this at work. The residents of the city see this at work. 30% of DEI workers have left the field, and demand has dropped for officers by 73% in the past 2 years. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. This is because DEI initiatives are ineffective, expensive, time-consuming, and do more harm than good. Number six, the last reason I'm here alone is because I am not an activist. I do not have any social media. I don't utilize change.org for boycotts, and I don't have the means to assemble a Facebook group. I'd rather stand alone than resort to these tactics. I'll end by sharing one of the many ideas I have to make our city more welcoming without separating people by skin color, which I do not support. My idea is to take a city bus from Huntington Woods and charge $3 a ticket. We would invite the residents of Huntington Woods to go to Southfield and join in their Juneteenth celebration as ambassadors of goodwill. This is just an example. We could also have bus rides to their city pool, so we could show our neighboring cities that we have goodwill and that we are ambassadors of that. That wouldn't cost the city any money. It does not separate people by color of skin. And this is only one of many ideas that I have. I will save the rest for later because I know I'm running over and I appreciate your time. And I want to remind you that I think you were talking about me, the young lady who said that she was furious at the people who opposed and that they were ignorant and that they attacked people. And that is because I disagree with you. So I want you to know that the only person that has been called a name today has been me by you. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you cutting me off.
Hi, my name's Nicholas Seward. I moved to this community 2 years ago with my Latino wife and my 2 Latino children. We moved here from Ferndale because we thought Huntington Woods would be as welcoming, as open, and as diverse as the community that we left. We get here, and literally every family of color we speak to has told us that they have withdrawn their children from the local elementary school due to issues that they had due to their child's racial makeup. To say that I was disappointed would be an understatement. To purchase an expensive home, to pay expensive property taxes, to be a part of this community, and then be told I can't even use something, or I shouldn't use something as basic as the public school because it could harm my children, it's offensive to every fiber of my being. As an attorney, the truth is what matters. The truth is my job. To hear other people stand up here and trying to abuse a search for the truth in order order to meet their own ends and desires is offensive. That's all I have.
My name's Dr. Claudia Osborne, and I, as well as my family and my son's family, are all residents of Huntington Woods. I don't usually attend council meetings. I've never spoken in one. But I listened online to a resident last week speak at your, or last month speak at your meeting, and I felt the need to learn much more about our Anti-Racism Commission and read the DEI report in its entirety myself. I felt the need to come tonight to express my support for our Anti-Racism Commission and my hope that Huntington Woods is becoming a model for other communities. I'm so impressed by the hard work on anti-racism and inclusion that has been done here. I hope and pray that there are no plans to dismantle the Anti-Racism Commission. I strongly support the recommendations that I have read in the DEI report. Thank you for your time and attention.
Hi, how you doing? Ellie Moscow, I live at 8376 Huntington Road. This is not my first meeting, and it's not my first commission meeting. I have attended meetings for other community committees, and I will say that oftentimes both commission meetings and community committee meetings are not very heavily attended. As a mother with young children, I know it's hard for me to get to meetings, as it is for many other people, and so we do rely on our volunteers who take the time to work on behalf of the city to do a good job on our behalf. I have never heard anyone call into question the work that's being done on pretty much any other committee as to whether the work's valid and whether their methods have been tested. If there's an issue with something that's raised to the council and suggestions, that's usually when we hear conversations, and I think that's the appropriate time. But these committees are appointed by our commission, and thankfully they are done so, in order to work on behalf of the best interests of the city. I participated in the survey for the DEI report. It was heavily advertised on signs, through blasts, and through many various forms of communication throughout the city. I also participated in the programs that the Anti-Racism Committee put on, including the Juneteenth event, but also including the listening session, which was an excellently attended, actually, program. I want to say there were at least 30 to 40 people there talking about the report that was put together and learning about it and how it was done and asking a lot of the questions it sounds like neighbors are now just starting to ask. So it was a really great opportunity to hear about that, to have things answered, and to have a better understanding of how that was conducted. Needless to say, I wholeheartedly support the Commission's decision to put together this Anti-Racism Committee and the volunteers who have taken the time to work diligently on these measures to make sure that our city is doing whatever we can to be a kind and welcoming and inclusive community. Now, that's not to say that we are a racist community. We may not be. There may be no racism at all in this community, but that's why we got to take every effort to make sure that there isn't any racism in the future, that nobody feels that they are being targeted because of who they look, how they pray, who they love, or any other reason. I am a person who used change.org to put together a sign-on letter for members of the community who were not able to make it tonight. And I got over 125 signatures from residents of the community over the course of the weekend. And basically what the letter said, it's not a boycott, it is a letter that says, we, the residents of Huntington Woods, wholeheartedly endorse the city's creation of its Anti-Racism Committee and the efforts of this committee, the city leadership, and each of the city's departments to investigate and implement improvements. We support and encourage our city's ongoing endeavors to continue to grow as a welcoming, inclusive, and diverse community. So thank you to the council, to the leadership, and to our committee members who have been working incredibly hard on this, and I hope that they continue to do so. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Erica Just. I also live on Dundee Road. I've lived there for, I think, 3 years next week. I will say that, like my neighbor who spoke recently, we moved here from Ferndale for the schools, for the high property taxes. The first summer, which was when we had been here almost a year, we put our kid in fruit camp, which had been highly recommended. And my 5-year-old son was told to go back where he came from, which is hilariously ironic, considering that he has lived within 1 mile of the Woodward and I-696 intersection since the day we brought him home from the hospital. Except that the fury that I felt at a 5-year-old being bullied in his first Parks and Rec camp for his ethnicity and his first language not being English was just devastating. I can say we did not get welcomed at all to this city in the same way that our neighbors who moved in slightly after us did, and that's fine. But when we told people that we were moving to Huntington Woods, one of the reactions I got was, that's actually amazing, because when a different Latino family that I was speaking to, when we were looking 30 years ago, our realtor wouldn't even show us homes there because she said that nobody would sell them to us. So when I found out that apparently well over half of the houses here don't even go on the market, I felt like I was back in Grosse Pointe in the 50s. This is not a city that doesn't need an anti-racism committee. This is not a city that doesn't need to work on diversity and inclusion. From what I'm hearing tonight, maybe one of the things we need to work on is being more inclusive and welcoming of people who don't share our own views. And I am a huge proponent of validity. I think validity is important. The fact that I don't share every view of every person in the city doesn't mean that I don't think we should treat them with respect. And so I want to make that clear. But I think that the overwhelming take-home message for me from this city has been, if you're a person of color, you better be well-resourced enough to be able to choose if you're going to send your kid to Burton or not. And that's a big burden to put on families who already have a uphill battle lying in this city. So I support the work of the committee, and I hope, though, too, that we can speak in a respectful way to the people who don't share my view of it.
Good evening. My name is Nathaniel Schiffbauer, a resident at 10475 Nadine. I am here because last month there was a call to invalidate the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Report and the Anti-Racism Committee. And I have come to voice my support for the Anti-Racism Committee, their Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Report, and the 550-plus residents who participated in it, and the anti-racism plan, which was formed and enacted in Huntington Woods. The words of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. were invoked last month in opposition of the work that's being done. Quote from his I Have a Dream speech, in which he dreams that his children would not be judged by the color of their skin. And it was used to imply that colorblindness is the goal here. And in fact, Martin Luther King Jr. never did advocate for colorblindness. In fact, in his essay, A Testament of Hope, as he did on countless other occasions, he spoke directly of race and the persistence of systemic racism. He says, "Justice for black people will not flow into this society merely from court decisions nor from fountains of political oratory. White America must recognize that justice for black people cannot be achieved without radical changes in the structure of our society." By these words, and those of innumerable other people of color in the U.S., I implore you to continue to confidently pursue anti-racism in Huntington Woods. Now, to be clear, I believe in constructive criticism when it's done in good faith. And because of that, I also have some constructive criticism of the arguments that were made in opposition of the committee from last week. The report from the Harvard Business Review, which was used to essentially nullify the work of DEI efforts in this country, if you read it, it is largely addressing the work done by Fortune 500 companies of thousands of people, was efforts that were enacted back in the 60s and 70s when we were just starting to segregate this country. And the same authors of that study in 2016 wrote another article in the Harvard Business Review in which they said that the reason why that they've discovered that a lot of these programs aren't working is because they don't have the follow-through from management. So thank you for your follow-through on this. With that follow-through, we will make differences in this community and make this a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment for everyone. I have more to say, but I will respect the time.
My name's Evan Carden. I live on Kingston. So I wanted to respond or mention one of the residents that referenced the Wall Street Journal article that DEIs are generally ineffective, expensive, they ultimately fail. That's true that many DEI programs fail. They don't have a great track record. What this resident did not mention is that the number one reason why DEIs fail is because white Americans generally don't believe in systemic racism. A lot of white Americans don't believe that there is inequities still. They think that, civil rights era passed, we've had a black president, and we're on an even playing field. The second reason why DEIs fail is because of lack of funding. It's a fairly common right-wing tactic to complain about social spending programs, complain about social justice programs as ineffective, cut funding for those programs, and then 2 years later point to the government not working, the government wasting taxpayer money on failed DEI initiatives. So actually, I want to thank the residents that brought up the DEI that was published, the anti-racism community, because I'm guessing this is a much more well-attended committee meeting than usual. Hopefully we have Huntington's residents that do believe that systemic racism is real, that do believe that government money should be spent not just as a one-time grant to fix racism, but perpetually to show that we are working towards eliminating, the skeletons of redlining and the past that we obviously can't change. And so, yes, DEI programs often fail, and I'm excited that we are at an opportunity where we can have a successful one. Thank you.
Sure.
See you at formal.
Are we going back to elected officials' remarks, Charlie, or?
No, the county, we're figuring out the budget and all this ARPA stuff, so I'll be back to talk business then. I'm just here in public comment. So I'm Charlie, I'm our county commissioner. So first, I actually don't know how long public comment is, because I usually get to do the politician update, so I talk for like
2 to 3 minutes.
Yikes. Okay. I gotta cut a lot of stuff out then. Well, first yeah, right. First I just want to say, kind of to what the previous person was saying about the anti-racism, I mean, we're having the conversation, so it does not feel good, and we got that, tightness in our chest, but, growth is happening here. right? Like, it's not comfortable to go to your edge. So one, great job for already doing it. Like, seriously, right? Like, to that I also want to say, I believe the anti-racism committee work is good, and I want to just bucket it in two quick things. One, a lot of people spoke very equivocally about our social and moral values, and then second, about economic values. So social and moral values, right, I mean, as we all know, right, we pay taxes to a government, and then the government spends that money. Budgets are moral documents, and government budgets are value statements of morals. So to that end, I think it's a very applaudable and noteworthy thing that Huntington Woods is using tax money and resources and time and energy and getting yard signs printed and all that for DEI, because it shows that you value this and that the community values this enough to put money towards it. So one, that's a great social value and moral value that you're doing. Second, to the economic values, just at the county, we've been going through budget processes the last couple months, and so we had the Economic Development Department come talk to us last week on Tuesday to do their presentation, and they were talking about how hard it is to compete with Munich and Seattle and Austin, Texas, because how is it that we can attract businesses, white-collar professionals, you know, financial services, engineers, all these things are our big money makers, IT, robotics, all this is like Oakland County's bread and butter. So how can our economic development team both keep jobs here, but really their attraction, how can they bring work here? And what they're finding is it's hard to combat a narrative to attract business when we have the Royal Oak Police Department getting in the national news for being disrespectful to black customers at restaurants, when Bloomfield schools are in the news for all the epithets that have been spray painted on their walls, when Farmington police are on CNN for what they did at their police department not too long ago. Like, that makes it harder when trying to convince companies to move to Oakland County. And so what Oakland County has done, just to say, like, we're also doing this at Oakland County, so what you're doing is something we can point to as a good example is we've created a DEI office. And to the previous speaker, we had a DEI director who was there for a couple years, and she made this great report about how the county can work on its structural racism issues. And then we didn't do anything with the report, so she left. So it's kind of part of what the previous speaker was saying about the structural issues they're in. And that jarred us awake at the county to go, boy, if we're going to do it, we might as well do it. So we're doubling down on DEI, but we kind of almost lost it for a second. Second, we have an equity council. Third, we have a procurement policy that we're shifting because, as I think someone else said, if you don't consciously seek change, then it just won't happen that quickly. So I just wanted to say I think the anti-racism work is good. I'm really supportive of what you're doing. I would love to help however I can, and I really appreciate you all for like having the conversation and being a part of this. I'm happy to support you all.
Any other comments?
Hi, my name's Jackie Victor, and I'm at 13116 Vernon. And I am a newcomer in Huntington Woods because I've only been here 6 years and not 36 years. So I can't remember, I'm sorry, the name of the resident who initially raised these concerns. My husband played her recording before dinner, so I didn't have a chance to really prepare anything, but I will be brief. I actually think that her concerns were, well, I appreciate them because they brought me here to support the work of the Anti-Racist Committee. Because racism is not goodwill. Someone said we're people of goodwill. Great, perfect. But that's not why racism exists. Racism exists because of structural issues. It didn't just happen that Oakland County was all white. It didn't just happen that white people left Detroit. It didn't just happen that Huntington Woods is, primarily white. These are structural issues that are going to take close examination to dismantle, and that is the work of the Anti-Racist Committee, and I commend them. I also want to say that it's not comfortable. The woman and the gentleman who said they're offended, that they're uncomfortable, right. it's going to make all of us uncomfortable, especially white people. It should. Because these issues, we've been living with the comfort of our privilege. And if that's going to get challenged, it's going to be uncomfortable. And that's actually a good thing. So I guess I want to say also that, you know, we don't know what, she said, do we know if it's valid? Their findings are valid. Yeah, of course we don't. Because if these issues were easy to solve, they would have been solved a long time ago. And so we're experimenting, we're trying. Some things are going to fail, some things are going to succeed. And Huntington Woods, it would be amazing if Huntington Woods went from the place where some of these residents are talking about these devastating things that have happened to them and their children to a place where we can look back and say, this is where we've come because we asked these hard decisions. Lastly, the woman also mentioned Martin Luther King and the quote about character and the content of our, not judging character based on our skin, but the content of our character or whatever, sorry. But I just want to say, I would invite you to read Martin Luther King's new biography, which is phenomenal, because what I learned, we all say Martin Luther King was so great, we would love him if he was here. No, we wouldn't. He made people uncomfortable. He had multiple, just year after year of death threats against him. And this wasn't just by people who were racist overtly. It was by people who didn't want their power and their privilege challenged. So I want to encourage the Anti-Racism Committee, make us uncomfortable. I think it's great that we're all here. I am empowered now to get more involved, ask questions, and then most importantly, see what I can do. So thank you for supporting the work of this committee thus far, and I hope that you'll continue to do so.
Good evening. Andy Rimshaw, 8144 Huntington Road. Been a resident of Huntington Woods for 25 years. My wife Ronaldine, my two children are Vern Drake. I'm more of a listener. Been at this about my fourth or fifth meeting over the last 6 weeks, and you've yet to hear from me. Just listen. It's great to see all these people here today. Because when I first came to the first meeting, there was like 5 people, and then it grew to 8, and there's 12, and now standing room only. I don't know if I'm a part of the minority or the majority. I'm not here to do the math on that. I do know one thing, and I think it's the majority of everyone in this room. We live in a great city. Huntington Woods, I remember when I'm a first generation, became a United States citizen about 18 years ago. And my wife wanted to live in Huntington Woods. And I was like, where? In Huntington Woods. And I said, why? I go, do you know how expensive those houses are? She's like, I want to live in Huntington Woods. And I said, well, we can live in Newvie. And she was like, where's Newvie? I'm like, over on the west side. I go, hey, we got a really big house out in Newvie. She's like, Novi? I'm like, whatever. Newvie, Novi, same thing. She wanted to live in Huntington Woods. So we scraped out what we could. We got ourselves a nice little house in Huntington Woods, and now we're on our 3rd house in the woods. And I love this city. And the comment I want to make, I think, is what I've learned in the listening that I've been doing is more of a transparency thing. I think there's been a lot of questions and for and against things, and there's just not a lot of transparency coming from that end of the room. Everything's come from this end of the room, positive and negatives. Now, this city's not going to grow and become better if we don't all work together. I feel terrible for the young child that came up and spoke earlier. I commend her. My kids went to the Burton School District, or went to Burton Elementary. My heart breaks for her and a few other of the kids that I've heard stories about tonight. Sounds like you guys need to have a conversation with the principal. That's what I took out of today's meeting. And I think I'll wrap up with, I appreciate Jeff and Joanne raising questions. And I think it's been said a few times already. Questions are good. I've yet to ever hear Jeff and Joanne attack anybody. I was at all the meetings. I haven't heard anybody really attack anybody here tonight on other things, but I do sense that there's an angst of people not truly understanding what everybody wants out of this whole thing. To say I'm for and against the committee, it doesn't even matter. I want the city to grow. And that probably needs to be some sort of a committee. But again, there's been such a wide range of topics that have gone across the board, from housing to people not being able to get a house to assisted living to, there's just so much that's being discussed, and really there's nothing really coming from that end of the room to say what exactly do we want to do. Because I think everybody in this room wants people to live together and be happy. No matter what the color of your skin is, what nationality you are, what minority or majority or whatever you're from. This is a great, great city. Mr. Jenks, you made a mention to, last meeting about the seniors won't move out. Please don't move me out, because I want to live here till the good Lord lets me live here, because I love this city. I'm not moving. But again, I just would love to see people talk. I'd love to see people get together. And again, just because someone has a different opinion of what you believe doesn't make them wrong or racist or this or that. Love thy neighbor. And let's just continue to make the city good. And I really just will end with repetition, which I get in trouble for all the time. A little transparency of what you'd like to do. We live in a democratic society. Let's vote on it. Then the majority will win on one. I'm not talking vote on a committee. I'm like, vote on things. Vote on, we're going to build something. Vote on, we're going to do this. We do it already. Let's just continue to grow and make this city the greatest city in the metro area, because it is one of them. But let's be the best. So thank you very much for listening.
Any other comments?
My name is Jessica Downey. I live at 13160 Kingston. I'm a 38-year resident of Huntington Woods, and I am not here to talk about the Anti-Racism Committee. I am here today to echo the sentiments I expressed at last month's City Commission meeting and the sentiments I've been expressing to the city for well over 5 years regarding Vale Jones Park. While I appreciate those that have responded to me and have kept the lines of communication open, I am disappointed in the consistent lack of action. Additionally, Mr. Mayor, I have personally emailed you multiple times, and I have never received the courtesy of your response. Again, I will state that there has been ample opportunity for accountability, improvement, and rectifying resident concerns, yet for over 5 years, we've been strung along with the promise of meetings and discussions instead of responsibility and action. As a city, you are so concerned about grass that's grown too high or garbage that's been put out too soon as being unsightly, yet you continue to turn a blind eye to the dilapidated blight that is Vale Jones Park. In my hand is a stack of 83 individual police reports for Vale Jones Park, more than any other public parks in the city combined. The reports include everything from spray-painted swastikas and phallic symbols to piles of human excrement in the park, drugs, alcohol, offensive language, noise complaints, injuries, and more. I recently received a message from a family friend who shared with me that her grandchildren were teased and bullied out of Vale Jones Park for simply wearing yarmulkes. Supporters of Vale Jones Park have often stated that the park is a widely used asset and outlet for our neighborhood youth. If this is the case, then it is our neighborhood youth who are being anti-Semitic, spray painting swastikas, leaving piles of human waste in the park, screaming fuck almost daily, and calling each other the N-word and faggots. If this is the case, we as a community have a much larger problem on our hands. These types of behaviors would never be tolerated at Burton Park or Reynolds Park. So why does the city allow them to continue at Vale Jones? Trespassing has been a major, almost daily issue at Vale Jones, partly due to lack of proper signage and posting of hours. As agreed upon by the Parks and Rec Department, the park is to close at 8 p.m. At the March 30th, 2021 Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting, Tracy shared new signage was in the works. At the May 30th, 2023 Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting, signage was discussed again, and Tracy again said it was being worked on. I can't for the life of me understand why 2 years, 4 months, and 16 days have passed and updated signage has still not been installed. Again, I will share that in June of this year, a safety and liability inspection was conducted by MMRMA on Vale Jones Park. The results from that inspection were presented to the city on June 3rd, 2023. The report recommended immediate closure of the hockey rink until repairs and replacements can be completed or a decision to discontinue the use of the rink is made, citing the risk of severe injury. Here it is 53 days after the city was in receipt of that report, and despite its recommendation for closure, the park remains open for use. Why were city resources, time, and money spent on this inspection if its findings were ignored? At the last City Commission meeting on July 18th, Commissioner Rozelle suggested having a special study session in August regarding, and I quote, the condition of Vale Jones Park and what the future of that looks like, along with other parks in need of improvement. The commission was in agreement. Mr. Wilson, you also stated, the Parks and Rec Committee and myself would like to incorporate the neighbors who would like to work with us on that going forward. We extended that olive branch and I hope that it will be accepted. Again, we, along with the other residents who live closest to Vale Jones, were not brought to the table, as has been promised more times than I can count. This morning, I was in receipt of an email from Mr. Wilson regarding updated plans for Vale Jones Park, including notification that work was authorized to begin on the rink ASAP. It also stated that the city is in the process of putting together an RFP with a planning services company with specific attention paid to Vale Jones Park and its surrounding residents. It seems backwards to me that work would start on the rink prior to the guidance of this planning services company, and once again, without public input. The Parks and Rec Advisory Board has consistently advocated for Vale Jones Park based predominantly on the wants and needs of a Facebook group for the inline skating rink at the park. It is important to note that of the close to 200 members of this Facebook group, all of whom are grown men, fewer than 10 are actual residents of the city of Huntington Woods. There is a member of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board that has been very active in said Facebook group, advocating for and making promises to its members, including soliciting and making repairs and changes to the park despite not being licensed or insured to do so. They have also made defamatory statements regarding our public safety department. My neighbors and I have brought our concerns regarding the conduct of this member to Mr. Wilson, along with each of you. We have further asked that this member of the advisory board be brought before the ethics committee, as they have consistently performed outside of the scope of their position. To my knowledge, this has never been further looked into, discussed, or taken care of in any capacity, and that member is still currently allowed to serve on the board. The city, again, has shown no accountability and is allowing those who represent them to act in a rogue manner. While we believe it is necessary to repair the rink for safety reasons, we hope you understand that by doing this, without additionally addressing the significant problems that affect the surrounding neighbors on a daily basis, you are catering much more to those patrons that visit the park from as far away as Wyandotte, Chesterfield, and Lake Orion, rather than the actual tax-paying residents of Huntington Woods. Again, I will share that the 2020 to 2024 Parks and Rec Master Plan states that a majority of the community favored reimagination of the park into something more inclusive and that could be used by all. In the action program portion of the master plan regarding Vale Jones Park, it stated that the city would conduct a study of park usage levels and receive resident feedback on possible park reconfiguration. Like every other commitment that has been made regarding Vale Jones Park, this has simply not happened. My family, neighbors, and I are tired of being pacified with disingenuous rhetoric. You are willfully failing the taxpayers of the city by not representing all of our best interests. Each of you have neglected the input from the 2020 to 2024 Parks and Rec Master Plan. Each of you have neglected resident concern and feedback regarding noise, parking, littering, loitering, among other issues. Each of you have neglected the evidence of a board member performing outside the scope of their elected position. Each of you have neglected the recommendations from the Liability and Risk Assessment from MMRMA to close the park. Each of you have ignored the 83 police reports stating the true behaviors that happen in and around Val Jones Park. Each of you have neglected your commitment to bring our family, neighbors, and other taxpaying residents to the table to discuss the future of Val Jones. Again, while we believe it is necessary to make the park safe for all who visit it, it is also important to take action in regards to the numerous problems that significantly affect the property values, quality of life, health, and well-being of the taxpayers who are the park's permanent neighbors. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, with that, I'm going to close public participation.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a quick comment? And that is that can we request, some of the comments made tonight were specific to Berkeley schools, and I think warrant, since that's outside of our purview, having our city manager send a recording of tonight's meeting to the superintendent of schools and each member of the Board of Education so they can be aware of what was discussed tonight as well. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to make one comment that there was no discussion about banning or closing down the Anti-Racism Committee. I know there were comments made at the last commission meeting. To that, I don't think they were actually asking for that. But this commission, as far as I know, has no intention of closing down the Anti-Racism Committee, and we have never talked about that. I think to some degree, the communication issues is the fault of the city commission. I think we will take that on. When we formed the Anti-Racism Committee, we knew we were going somewhere. We didn't really know where it was going to go. And we told them that when I met with them the first time they met. I said, we don't really have a direction or know what direction you're going. We're looking to go with you on this journey. And yeah, we really haven't defined what their role is and what they're going to do. You know, Andy Rimshaw made a very good comment. This is a great community. We all love this community. We need to work together, and we need to work through this. Someone else said these are uncomfortable questions that we're asking ourselves. They are. There are no easy answers. But we're not stopping the process here. We are committed to this process. Okay, back to regular items of business. Item number one is a matter of considering approval of a proposal from MKSK for a climate action plan.
I'd like to questions, please.
I'm sorry, public participation has been closed, Al.
Participation, I'm speaking to that issue.
That's okay. What issue are you talking to?
The issue of MKMS.
We will have an opportunity for the public to address that. Okay. First of all, do we have a motion for approval?
So move.
Explain it.
I think, yeah, just given the time, I'll try to be brief. The Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee has taken this, has pursued this. This was part of the, a proposal that came out of the 2019 energy plan that was adopted by the city. And it was also mentioned in the last master plan that was completed in 2022. I provided copies of both some minutes and some pages of both the master plan and the 2019 energy plan. So we were looking to put together what's known as the climate action plan. Had extensive discussions about this at the Environmental Sustainability Committee. Took a look at some neighboring communities that have done this. Most closely, I think, was Ferndale. Ferndale put a plan together about a year ago. It was pretty extensive. We're probably not looking to have a broad of a draft as they did, or maybe the city of Ann Arbor, but we felt there was room to do one here. It was mentioned in the master plan. We did reach out to MKSK, as they were the firm that has worked with the city for a while. They did put together the climate action plan. Originally came back with a proposal that was, I felt, greater than the budget would accommodate. So we made some modifications where city staff is going to do some of the data work, handle some of the public meetings for that process, which got the cost down to a range of not to exceed $15,000. There are some additional charges for additional meetings that you'll see in their cost proposal, which we'll have to determine at the end of the plan if we want to use that or not. But speaking with Mr. Berry, I'm confident the city staff, in conjunction with working with the City Planning Commission and the Environmental Committee, can probably do most of that and keep these costs down. So after reading the proposal, the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee reviewed it as well. It does come with their recommendation. And we are looking to get that approved so we can begin that process as soon as possible. Thank you.
I will also add that the Climate Action Plan will also assist us in guiding us to a future capital infrastructure investment and could benefit the city in efforts to gain funding for green infrastructure and grants from federal government.
That's definitely the hope. Yeah, well, thank you, Commissioner. Mentioned that as well. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to open it up to public participation. Are there any comments or questions from the public?
Al Stack, Talbot Avenue. So indeed, this was the consulting firm that did the last update of our master plan, correct?
Correct.
This is the consulting group that developed a master plan that had nothing to do with environmental sustainability or climate action, correct? The initial draft. Then the citizens complained, and you had them put in some generalized action plan so it could get by. So why is this particular, and in the new master plan, after people complained, where you put in some environmental issues, why is this same company, who initially didn't even bother to put environmental sustainability issues in the city's master plan until people complained, why are they chosen? And how, I've asked you, Chris, if I could see the RFP. Can I see the RFP? Is there an RFP?
Do you want me to respond? We did put out a formal RFP. We did inquire for RFQs from other communities, from other companies, including Safe Build and OHM. Either they didn't respond or the price was too high. MKSK, originally the price was high as well. They did have some experience in this, which is included in their packet, and they had an existing relationship, so that was why we decided to go forward with them at this time.
So I'm not doubting that it's a competent urban planning consulting firm. I'm just curious why there was not a RFP. People like Don Carpenter, for example, at Lawrence Tech weren't. Did you send an RFP to Don Carpenter? No, of course not. Okay, I'm sure this will get, you will vote for it and we'll have something, but it's typical process. Thank you.
Any other comments?
The public comment, will you respond when I'll ask those questions?
Sure.
Or you just, I don't understand how the process ever works. People talk here.
Public comment.
Public comment, no
It's
comment.
comment.
Right.
No comment from the commenters.
Correct.
Oh, gotcha.
Thank you, Al. Yes, sir. I hope everybody here who's concerned about.
Seeing no others, I'll close public participation.
Will come to the environmental sustainability.
Mr. Stack, please.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions from the commission? No. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 is a matter of appointments of residents to various boards and commissions. Anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to appoint Kimberly Skrind to the Environmental Advisory Committee.
Want to do them both?
Sure, I'll take the second one as well. Move to appoint Beatrice Robinson to the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee.
That's a student member?
As a student member, yes.
Second.
Any public comment? Commission comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. City managers report.
Okay, Thank you, Mayor Paul. Since we last met, we did have the July 28th event at Rackham Golf Course, dedicating the historical marker both for Rackham and for former golf pro Ben Davis. I unfortunately was out of town, but we had a great turnout, including all the members here from the commission. Lieutenant Governor was there, county executive was there, Haley Stevens was there, so it was a wonderful event. We got good press coverage, and we're happy for the marker to be there. Thanks to everybody for their efforts on that. I thought the brochure put together by city staff, by Sarah, was excellent. And the media coverage was good. It was a good community event, so thank everybody for their efforts on that. Thank you to Mr. Olsman for his work in getting the plaque and getting the dignitaries there. Mayor, thanks for your efforts in reaching out to the Rackham mayors. We did have a member of the Rackham family show to speak at that event. That was quite good. We did have an election last week that went well for a school village vote. Obviously, a lot of work, very heavy turnout, as is always the case on Huntington Woods. So thank you to the residents for the turnout. Heidi and the new deputy clerk Sarah Wagner worked very hard on that, as did all the poll workers. So thank you to everybody for their efforts with that. And also, since we last met, we had one of the things we did talk about in the park. I think Council is well aware, Commission is well aware. We went to a private landscaping firm this year. We've had some disagreements with them about the scope of services, and during the interim for the last meeting, we have moved on from them and retained another firm. We've been working about 2 weeks in the community, I think, with positive results. So I think things will continue to work better. So thank you to Mrs. Rosati for helping guide us through that, and to Rocco and DPW for their efforts as well. It has worked well. Following up from the previous meeting, I know we had the issues with two residents with off-street parking. We have been working with Mrs. Stone we will be obtaining the favors and working with her for installation of the completion of that, really in conjunction with the completion of that road project. And Mr. Lewis, who also petitioned the commission, has met with city staff this week about pursuing a ZBA application for either some type of alternative parking arrangement when that off-street parking is removed. So that's been very productive as well. There's going to be a dream cruise, everybody's favorite time of year. It's remarkable how, as just my second year here, how well public safety and DPW does handling that event. That is a massive undertaking, and it's really pretty seamless. Thanks to them. They're going to work a lot of hours to keep everybody safe and entertained. And I know we'll have another successful event. Thanks to DPW and public safety for all their efforts. That's all I have.
Any comments or questions from the commission? City manager.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one, and that is, it might be beneficial, I know a lot of our calendars fill up quick, if we can get a date for that special study meeting on our schedule to go over the park situation, Val Jones and others sooner rather than later. I know we discussed August. We're only halfway through the month, but if we can't make it this month, certainly early September, right after Labor Day, if we can get a date on the books to start that review process of the RFP, it would be good.
I can work with Mayor Paul to work with the rest of the commission to pick a date for that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Happy to do that.
Excellent. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending.